Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Upload Season 3, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So what was it? It was like it's a holiday. It's like a discount something holiday, and I guess it's supposed to be the equivalency of like Thanksgiving. And obviously, Nora and Nathan end up kind of going to this housing place where his mom is. Because, I mean, they did bring it up last season that his mom was having, like, financial issues. So, I'm curious how that works. I wonder, does this, like... Well, because I wonder, did she sink even more of the money into the Freon thing? Well, no, because it was supposed to be for free, wasn't it? So... I was about to say, I'm curious about how that works, because it's like, well, Nevaeh's not staying with her, so, but I guess maybe she's one of those moms that's like, oh, I don't want to kind of worry my children too much, so I'm not going to really push on that front. But either way, I know Nevaeh's her grandchild, but I was like assuming like her mom or whatever would like be involved in that situation, but like I said, that's why I feel like she's probably like, oh, I'm not going to ask one of my like kids for help or anything like that. But either way, so when it's all said and done, they're having to share the place with a lot of people, and it's like, yeah, make sure you only touch stuff that says Viv and not Big Viv. Also, she's staying with Mauricio, which I'm like, oh, this is a thing. I was like, that's kind of sweet, but I wasn't expecting you guys to have a relationship. And it's like, oh yeah, we're going to have to share all this stuff. And it's like, she's like, oh, Mauricio, you might want to be staying with your mom. He's like, I don't want to be staying with my mom. She's like, come on, it's just going to be in for a night, babe. He's like, okay, babe. Which is so interesting. I love the parallels because he couldn't make the babe work last time, but it's kind of happening between Viv and Mauricio. So I thought that was kind of sweet. He's like, hey, but you can call me dad. He's like, no. But he's like, well, you could call me dad, or if you're more comfortable, you can call me Mauricio, but you'll always be son to me. Kisses him on the forehead, tries to go kiss Nora. She's like, no, thank you. No. It's like, I even love later on when he hugs Nevaeh and he's like, oh, don't worry, like, don't be jealous, that's his niece. And she's like, ew, I know. He's like, well, I was just telling you because you're new. She's like, no, you're new. That it's like, he's acting like, oh, I've been part of the family forever. I mean, it's like, that's the thing of like, you are the newest person to this family, so him coming in thinking, I guess he doesn't know the ins and outs of all this dynamic that, like, obviously they've known Nora a lot longer than Viv's known Mauricio, but I just thought that was so funny. But I also love the bit of just like everyone shitting on Nathan because they're just like, oh yeah, you're not as, I mean, especially because as vain and narcissistic as he is, people being like, oh, you're not as muscular as you used to be. Like, because even his mom, when she first like hugged him and, you know, touched his stomach, and she would look at him and then kind of look back up and smiled. I was like, yeah, I know what you're getting at, Mom. But yeah, like him and Nora are trying to make things work. She's picking up extra shifts at Horizon, which I guess I'm wondering, are we completely like, it's so interesting because like the Luds was a part of last season, but we're just kind of completely moving away from that. Like I said, I guess this is just purely their own thing. Like that's so interesting though, because it's like, I guess we're not going to cut back to the Luds or Nora's dad at all. I mean, to be fair, once they have to be laying low because they got blamed for everything that went down last season. So you'd almost think they'd kind of embraced it more, but it's also because they were like willing to be like, oh, we got to like do a little harm to do some greater good, but this probably like screws over their messaging worse. So it's probably like not good in the long run. So it's not good publicity or PR to kind of sway people towards their side. It's more like, oh, people are against you now. So I think that probably is why they're probably keeping it super low key. Because I had brought it up last episode. I was wondering why like Ivan was just back at work. I was like, is that just to keep things low key? So, but I'm curious, are we going to cut to the Luds at all this season? Which, I mean, you know, it's only like the first half of the season, so who knows what the back half could end up looking like, or even what the next episode will entail. But either way. But Nora's picking up extra shifts. Nathan's trying to find work. I love the guy was like, oh, have you ever been to prison? He was like, nope, clean records. Like, oh, such a shame. They needed someone who's actually been to prison, who's seen some shit. He's like, oh, can you eat frozen yogurt? Okay, like, they want someone who can eat frozen yogurt out of... He's like, nope. He's like, I mean, come on, you can't be so negative. I mean, you'll miss out on your dream job if you're like that. It's like, so you want me to eat frozen yogurt out of a butthole? He's like, no. It's like, all right, fine. So I love how that combines with the Ingrid plot line because she got cut off from her family, and so she doesn't have the money to kind of really celebrate the holidays with Nathan. I even love it. Nathan's like, yeah, I haven't hung around Luke, which once again I'm like, is that by design or is it just because Luke is just you? How is it that you guys are just still managed to not see each other? That he still hasn't run into copy Nathan. That's what I still find so interesting. Once again, because even last episode, David Choke ran into him, but it's like, like, I was wondering, did Ingrid set that up? Did her and Tinsley kind of have, like, a setup in that regard? I'm also curious, are we going to find out by the end of this season that, like, Tinsley and, like, Ingrid are going to become friends? Because it's like, all right, what you're going to do is going to hook me up with free meals and stuff. And Tinsley's like, okay, I mean, but the fact is, it will have to be one of those things that, like, it's going to be like a free meal thing, but you have to eat it in your room because nobody wants to kind of, because it's policy that no one wants to like see someone like less fortunate. Like the rich don't want to see the less fortunate eating and stuff in front of them. And Ingrid's like, yes, I know. I voted for that. I was like, Jesus, it's karma coming back to bite you in the ass, huh? But yeah, because of her money issues, she ends up getting a job. And I love that. Well, I mean, I don't know how that works for her. Like, she does, I guess she gets to benefit from it. So it's like, right, you get to spend time with Nathan at work because that way you're also not in the tub the entire time. But she's at the hug suit. And funny enough, she ends up running into Nathan, who went there looking for a job, and her being like, Nathan, oh my God, real Nathan, hey, yeah, I'm dating some guy. And she's like, oh my God, his dick is so big, and he's like, so handsome, like more handsome to you. She's like, yeah. He's like, oh, like you definitely, I'm glad to see that you like went up dating wise. And she's like, yeah, I definitely didn't go lateral. It's like, yeah, I'm so over you, which is like, yeah, that is so ironic, isn't it? It's like, oh, and even Nathan's like, well, we should all hang out sometime. And she's like, yeah, no, yeah, we should, but that'd be so weird. And he's like, why would it be weird? She's like, I was like, that's going to be an awkward situation. I love that Nora and Nathan found out about stuff respectively and then came together with that information about, oh yeah, there's a clone Nathan. Oh, also Ingrid's working. So I love that that's what Viv was like, wait, what? That's the most surprising thing I've heard today. I mean, she's got a job. She's like, I don't even have a job. It's like, yeah, interesting how that worked out. And obviously she's got the support of backup, or yeah, let's call him backup Nathan. I guess that's just going to be his nickname for. I mean, you could just go with Lakeview Nathan, but it's like, nah, he's just going to be backup Nathan. It's going to be almost interesting enough. It's probably going to be almost like this weird Mauler twins thing of like, oh, who's the original? I mean, it's like, well, we know, but still, even in that situation with the Mauler twins, it kind of still plays out like that. So it feels like it could be almost a little bit of an interesting dynamic like that. But either way. There's also this interesting thing where it turns out that Nathan found out his buddy Jamie ended up dying, which I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, oh, what happened to you, buddy? It's like, I wonder, was that just like an accident situation? Or was it kind of like what happened to Nathan happened to him? Because it's like, well, he knows about the code and we don't want to take any chance that could come back. So like, we'll get him off the board type of thing. It was just like a few seconds in the episode, like at the very beginning of the episode, and it never kind of gets brought back up. So it could just be like it was an accident or just life happened type of situation. I'm curious to see like whether that kind of gets explored more or not, whether that ends up being part of this larger conspiracy that David Choke and the others are like this cabal, because he ended up seeing like, because the person that was there, he was like, oh, he was at that meeting back in episode 1 with David Choke, that him and Nora watched from the bathroom. It was like, so feels like there's a lot more to that, but I thought that was such an interesting, it did just planted that little seed and just never went back to it this episode, so we'll see. I do love this whole element of, families, both the families you made as well as your OG family, because you have Ingrid because of like cutting ties with her family, and her and Nathan kind of being family to each other, even though he has his own family, but his family, well, backup Nathan doesn't know he's backup Nathan and doesn't realize that real Nathan is out there hanging out with the actual family. So, and with Nora, so real Nathan's kind of got a combo of the two of like, oh, the family you made with him and Nora, but also like, you know, and Mauricio with, along with his actual family, so. Because especially how that ties into Alicia's story, because she wanted to hang around her mom, which also her dad is played by, is it Alvin Sanders, played Pop Tate in Riverdale. So I was like, interesting. I was like, wow. Obviously funny too, considering like Riverdale like just ended this year, but because he's also in Resident Alien. He plays Mike's dad. Either way. Putting all that aside, but yeah, she wanted to kind of do something special for her family because she's the one cooking this year, but her family's kind of super ungrateful. It's so interesting that, because Luke obviously wants to spend time with her because he doesn't really have anyone else. We haven't really caught up with him and Ingrid's grandmother. We haven't seen her in a hot minute, so I'm curious if that's just something that's kind of like they're not even hooking up anymore or what. Maybe that's something we'll kind of explore later on, but yeah, for now, he was kind of hoping to probably hang around Alicia, but she wants to be there for her family, but she's also juggling that and dealing with, because Lucy put a lot of the responsibilities on her because, well, Lucy's got to try and work out things with her husband because their marriage is on a decline, and she's like, if I don't, he'll end up leaving me, so Alicia kind of gets stuck balancing working and trying to be there for her family, but her family doesn't really appreciate her. And the people who ultimately end up appreciating her, once again, the family you kind of find, it is really sweet how that whole thing turns out, where it's like, right, Luke is teaching the AI guys how to be more, the whole thing is about making them more human. And I love the whole bit about like, oh, like they like, it's like, yeah, stop staring at people. And it's like, and then he looks down at Alicia's chest and it's like, dude, you can't stare there either. He's like, nowhere is safe to look. I'm like, feels like a very deliberate line of dialogue, but Luke is teaching them everything about like a day off and stuff, and they want to take a day off, and Alicia's like, all right, you work super hard, I'll throw you a party, because they're like, fine, I'll go back to work until we run down, or no thanks for the job that we do. It's like, well, fine, you do a good job, and I'll celebrate with you. And her own family, like, what she did wasn't good enough, but then she comes back and because her actual family didn't wait for her. They're like, oh, like, you know, we couldn't wait around for you and stuff like that, because she got a better paying job. She's trying to do something nice. It's like, oh, I bought this nice food printer, but it's like, you're saying like the flavor's not good enough, and it's just like, just nitpicky. But the people who actually waited for her were the AI guys and Luke, and it's just, yeah, she's teaching them how to eat. It's like, no, like, let it go to the back of your, and so it's progress. It's a messy family, but it means a lot to Luke because he likes Alicia, and Alicia likes him too, but they haven't really taken a deep dive yet. I don't think Alicia's quite there mentally of being like, because she's already seen it firsthand with the whole Nora and Nathan of it all, and also Tinsley being like obsessed with him and everything. So I'm curious, speaking of Tinsley, like, other than just like, oh, will she be friends with Ingrid? I'm curious, will she try and make a backup of Nathan for herself because she is so obsessed with him? She's not as obsessive, to be fair. That's because Ingrid nipped that in the bud last episode, but it's still kind of like, I could definitely see Tinsley taking advantage of that because she's seeing how it's working out. But maybe she's fine with just being able to look on from the outside. I don't know. We'll see how that all transpires and how that all plays out. But I love that when backup Nathan calls his mom and stuff, and they're trying to keep it away from him, like, because real Nathan's like, oh, let me talk to him. Let me, come on, I want to talk to him. Oh, what was he like? It's like, oh, he's like you, but more handsome. Because I love when Nora told him about the copy. It's like, that's what she meant. It's like, wow. The fact is, she isn't over me, Plus, she made this whole thing about like, oh, saying he has a bigger dick, he's more handsome. So she was like building me up while also tearing me down at the same time. He was like, that was actually really impressive. Now that I think of maybe to think about it in retrospect. But yeah, he wants to get to know the other one. It's like, oh yeah, he's so handsome and so needy. He's like, okay, ha ha ha, I get it. But yeah, I need to know. I need to know, what was he like. Once again, he is narcissistic enough, but it is kind of cool. He even said to Nora, it's like, yeah, like if you have a backup me if something ever happens to me, and she's like, yeah, he's with Ingrid. She's like, yeah, but I mean, he's like, I'm sleeping with you. I mean, we're sleeping with, I'm sleeping with you. Sorry, Mom. Which I forgot that whole bit where she was like, I'm gonna give you guys your privacy. She puts on the blindfolds and puts in like the earbuds, and she's like, no, you guys go to town even though we have to share the same bed. And even when they cut off the light, she's like, I mean, really, guys, you can go away. It's like, no, Mom, no. And Nora's like, no, thank you. It's like, oh, God. But we kind of end the episode on a sad note because when, like, they're having fun and just everything's great. And, like, Nora's just, like, literally drops the words, I love you. And Nathan, like, just in that moment, his nose starts bleeding heavily because because even Nora was like, right, you'll tell me when, he's like, I'll tell you when my nose starts bleeding because he doesn't want to worry her. He even had this moment early in the episode. He was like, yo, like it was either about I think it was about the backup. And he was like, oh, it's just so wild. And he did like an imitation of like a head exploding, like, oh, it blew my mind. He's like, pfft. And she's like, don't do that. He was like, yep, sorry about that. It's like, yeah, not really the best time to do that. But yeah, just for the episode to end on that kind of sour note of just like, oh, this was a fun day. But eventually it was going to catch up. And his nose has bled a little bit, but it's dripping heavily from both nostrils. It's streaming now out of his nose. So it's like he's got less and less time. I'd actually skipped over it, but Nora was looking up Dr. Kapoor, the one who was working with Oscar Mayer to like work on the download situation. She was looking up his address, and now this is going to expedite that even more. Like it was already a massive concern, but now it's even more of a priority now because he's going to have the fact is that's happening means he has less and less time. So I get the feeling like this Nathan will probably last until the end of the season, and then he'll ultimately die. So, but we'll have to wait to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good